How evil produces evil. In the form of the Pardoner's Tale, this allegory is firmly rooted at the very base of English literature, through Geoffrey Chaucer's The Canterbury Tales of nearly 6 centuries ago. In the records of its transmission through several cultures, however, it enables us to study the preoccupations of each people employing it. In the ancient Indian form, it is presented to inculcate a moral. In its Arabian garb, and the Italian, the chief figure is Jesus, where the religious aspect is stressed. The Old German version is anti-Jewish, and the Florentine recension favours the wisdom of a hermit. The Central Asian writing was by the 13th century major Sufi mystic, of Chaucerian rank in Persian, Fariduddin Attar, and here the application is that of the Gnostic, to the effect that there is an unperceived world beyond normal perceptions. The following version is from the 16th century Italian. The story is famous too as the plot of Hans Sachs's 1547 Meisterlied. A certain hermit was walking one day in a deserted place, when he came across an enormous cave, the entrance to which was not easily visible. He decided to rest inside and entered. Soon, however, he noticed the bright reflection of the light upon a large quantity of gold within. The hermit, as soon as he became aware of what he had seen, took to his heels and fled as fast as he could. Now in this desert area were 3 robbers, who spent much time there so that they could steal from travellers. Before long the pious man blundered into them. The thieves were surprised, and even alarmed at the sight of a man running with nothing in pursuit. But they came out of their ambush and stopped him, asking him what was the matter. "I am fleeing, brothers," he said, "from the devil, who is racing after me." Now the bandits could not see anything following the devout old man, and they said, "Show us what is after you." "I will," he said, for he was afraid of them, and led them to the cave, at the same time begging them not to go near it. By this time, of course, the thieves were greatly interested, and insisted that they should be shown whatever it was that had caused such alarm. "Here," he said, "is death, which was running after me." The villains were, of course, delighted. They naturally regarded the recluse as somewhat touched, and sent him on his way, while they revelled in their good fortune. Now the thieves began to discuss what they should do with the booty, for they were afraid of leaving it alone again. Finally they decided that one of their number should take a little gold to the city, and with it buy food and other necessities, and then they would proceed to the division of the spoils. One of the ruffians volunteered to run the errand. He thought to himself, "When I am in town I can eat all I wish. Then I can poison the rest of the food so that it kills the other 2, and all the treasure will be mine." While the rogue was away, however, his companions were also thinking. They decided that as soon as he returned, they would kill him, eat the food, and divide the spoils so as to gain the additional 3rd share that would otherwise be his. The moment the first thief arrived back at the cave with the provisions, the 2 others fell upon him and stabbed him to death. Then they ate all the food, and expired of the poison which their friend had bought and put into it. So the gold, after all, did indeed spell death, as the hermit predicted, for whoever was influenced by it. And the treasure remained where it had been, in the cave, for a very long time. The Ghoul and the Youth of Ispahan. Episodes from the English Jack the Giant Killer are found in favourite folk tales about encounters with ogres all over the world. In Jack, the giant roars fee-fi-fo-fum, or fee-fa-fum. And in the Indian version, the Rakshasas say fee-for-fum. The Albanian variant of this story is very close to that of the Norse lad and the troll, and the Sicilian brave shoemaker and the giant is almost identical. Several incidents from Grimm's The Brave Little Tailor appear in this cycle of stories. It is known in South America, where the Chilean adaptation is that of Don Juan Bolondron. The following is the Persian recital, given by the Shah's personal storyteller to Sir John Malcolm. Parts of it may also be found in the Sanskrit 70 Tales of a Parrot, in the Nordic Edda of Snorro, and varieties have been noted in Cornwall and Kashmir. Once upon a time, there was a clever young lad of the ancient city of Ispahan in Persia. He was out one day when he came upon a ghoul, a sort of ogre giant, terrible in size and horrible in temper. "What can I do?" he asked himself. And well he might ask, for ghouls love to enslave and destroy people, and even eat them up. All that the young man, Amin the True was his name, had with him was an egg and a lump of salt, both in his pocket. Now, as everyone knows, the best form of defense is attack, so Amin approached the ghoul, which was looking at him with frightful fury, and said, "Ho, ghoul, let's have a contest of strength." For a moment the ghoul was puzzled, because human beings never spoke like that to him, and like all ghouls, he was not brilliantly intelligent. Then he said, "You don't look very strong to me." "I may not look strong," said Amin, "but have you not heard that appearances can be deceptive? Here is a proof of my tremendous strength." He picked up a stone. "Now I challenge you to squeeze water out of this." The ghoul took the stone and tried. Then he said, "No, it is impossible." "Not at all. It is easy," replied Amin. While the ghoul had been squeezing, Amin had placed the egg in his own hand. Now he took the stone in the same hand and squeezed. There was a crushing sound as the egg broke, and the ghoul saw what he thought to be the liquid from the stone running between Amin's fingers. And all this was done without Amin showing any sign of strain at all. Luckily, it was not completely light, so the details of what was happening were not entirely visible to the monster. Then Amin took up another stone and said, "There is salt in this one, just crumble it between your fingers." The ghoul looked at the stone and saw that it was quite beyond his power to crush it, and he admitted that he could not. "Oh, give it to me," said Amin. He took it into the hand in which he had already hidden the lump of salt, and crumbled the salt into the hand of the amazed ghoul. "Now," said the giant, "you must stay the night with me." And Amin agreed, for he guessed that he would always be able to get the better of him. When they arrived at the immense cavern which was his host's home, the ghoul threw Amin an enormous bag made from the hides of no less than 6 oxen, and said, "Go and fill this with water, while I make the fire ready to cook." He went away in search of wood. Amin wondered what he could do about the water, and then an idea occurred to him. He could hardly drag the bag more than a few feet, so he abandoned it and went down to the stream and started to dig a small channel. Soon the ghoul appeared and cried, "Why are you taking so long? Can't you lift a little bag of water?" "No, my friend," said Amin. "Since you are being so hospitable to me, I have decided to dig a channel to bring the water to you, so that you always have a supply. See, I have started already. There is no point in feats of strength for their own sake. That is just a waste of time and effort." The ghoul was hungry, so he said, "Leave the water, I shall carry it." And he picked up the bag as if it had been a feather and filled it at the river. "Finish the channel tomorrow, if you want to," he said. The ghoul ate a huge meal, and in the darkness of the cave Amin pretended to eat as well. Then the ghoul pointed to a sleeping place and told Amin to lie down on it for the night. But there was a crafty look in the ghoul's eyes, and Amin placed a large pillow in the place where he should be sleeping and hid himself in a corner. A little before daybreak, the ghoul woke up. Seizing an immense tree trunk, he smashed it down on Amin's head. There was not even a groan, and the ghoul grinned as he thought that he must have crushed Amin to pulp. Just to make sure, he pounded the bed 7 times. Now the ghoul went back to sleep, but he had hardly settled himself again when Amin, who had crept back into his own bed, cried out, "Friend ghoul, what insect could that be which disturbed me by its flapping? I counted the beat of its wings 7 times. Although such things cannot hurt men, they can be disturbing to someone who is sleeping." The ghoul was aroused to such heights of fear at hearing that this was a man who felt a shattering blow, 7 blows, only as the wings of an insect, that he fled headlong from his cave, leaving Amin its master. Amin took up a gun which had been left by some victim of the ghoul and went out to scout. He had not gone very far when he saw the ghoul coming back. In his hand he held a large club, and beside him was a fox. Amin realized that the cunning fox had explained matters to the ghoul, but he was equal to the challenge. Aiming the gun, he shot it through the head. "Take that," he shouted, "for disobedience." To the ghoul he said, "That liar," pointing to the fox, "had promised to bring me 7 ghouls so that I might put them in chains and lead them back to the city of Ispahan, but he brought only you, who are already my slave." No sooner were the words out of his mouth than the ghoul took to his heels. Using the club to help him, he leapt over rocks and precipices, and he was soon far out of sight. The Pilgrim from Paradise. The theme of the crafty adventurer is common to a whole genre of stories, just as the entertainment possibilities in misunderstandings and the working of simpletons' minds are 2 further well-exploited themes, especially in folklore. These elements are combined in a humorous whole in a tale which is a favourite, and has been such for centuries, in countries as far apart as Norway, Brittany, Italy, and southern India. A distinctive characteristic of this story is that, from the frozen north to the sun-baked southeast of Asia, the essential incidents remain remarkably similar. This version is from the 19th century Bombay collection of Pandit Natesa Sastry. A kindly and charitable, somewhat simple woman, married to a rich miser, once lived in a village where a certain rogue had made up his mind to fool the woman when he could find an opportunity. One day, this man saw the miser ride out to make a tour of his land, and decided that the time to work his trick had arrived. He made his way to the house where the couple lived, and threw himself upon the ground, as if completely exhausted. The good woman came out at once, asking what his trouble was, and where he was from. "I am a traveller from paradise," he said, "and I have been sent by an ancient couple to seek news of their son and his wife." The lady was very much impressed that she had a visitor from the mysterious, inaccessible Mount Kailasa of the Himalayas, and wondered aloud who these lucky people could be whom her guest represented. The villain gave the names of her husband's parents, whom he knew to be dead, and this, of course, only increased her interest. "And how are they?" she asked. "Are they well? If only my husband were at home to hear your news of his dear old father and mother." She asked him to sit down to rest, and plied him with question after question about the departed ones. She played into the swindler's very hands by asking him whether her parents-in-law had enough to wear and to eat, and if they were really happy. The thief was anxious to be on his way before the miser returned, so he made short work of his answers. "Lady," he said, "I have no words to describe their miserable state. In the world beyond they have no clothes, no food, only some water to drink. How lucky that you cannot see their sufferings." "But why should it be so with them?" she asked, "when their son has so much, and when I have everything I need?" To cut a long story short, she went into the house and brought out a large quantity of clothes and all her own jewels. "Clothes and jewels will not help their hunger," said the confidence man, and the trusting woman went back into the house and brought as much of her husband's money as she could find. Collecting up his loot, the villain made off as fast as he could. Not long afterwards the husband returned, and you can imagine his rage when he heard from the excited lady how a messenger from paradise had brought grave news and taken succour to his mother and father. But there was no time to be lost. Choking back his fury, he merely asked her which way the messenger had gone, and he spurred his horse in hot pursuit. Before long the miser saw the thief, and started to gain on him minute by minute. The deceiver, realizing that he could not escape, decided to rely on his wits, and climbed up a tall tree with his bundle of booty. As soon as the miser arrived at the bottom of the tree, he called upon the thief to come down. "Sorry," said the swindler, "I am making my way heavenwards, to Kailasa." He climbed to the very top of the towering peepul tree. The miser settled himself to wait, but then he became impatient and started laboriously to climb up after the thief. Waiting until he had almost reached him, the agile thief threw down all the things he had with him and shinned down the tree faster than the miser could follow. Leaping on the miser's horse, he rode it into the thickest part of the jungle he could find. The miser, of course, was now completely outwitted. Sorrowfully, he made his limping way back to his home. There was his wife, with radiant face, who called out to him in delight, "Ah, so you have even handed over your horse to be taken to paradise, so that your dear old father can ride." Unable to admit that he was as much a fool as she had been, the miser could only try to cover his rage and folly by saying, "Yes, that's right." The Blind Ones and the Matter of the Elephant. Reading the controversies of folklore scholars sometimes feels more like being on a battlefield than strolling in the groves of academe. Edward Clodd, 1840 to 1930, president of the British Folklore Society, insisted that folk traditions represented the persistence of barbaric elements until the present day. Rumpelstiltskin was an example of a primitive name taboo found in East Anglia, as Tom Tit Tot quite recently, and so on. Rabbi Moses Gaster of Romania, 1856 to 1934, another president of the same society, insisted, on the other hand, that tales were the last and modern development of folklore. Were these the only possible positions? No. According to a third president of the Folklore Society, Alfred Nutt, 1856 to 1912, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. On the seashore we may pick up fossils, reaching back into a past incalculably remote. We may also pick up worn and rounded fragments of ginger beer bottles flung away perhaps only 6 months before. It all puts one in mind of an anecdote of the Eastern folklore figure Mullah Nasruddin. Nasruddin entered the mosque and said to the people, "Do you know what I am going to tell you?" There were shouts of "No." So he said, "Then I shall not bother with such ignoramuses." The following day he asked the same question again from the pulpit, The answer was yes. Then I don't need to tell you, he said, and went out. The third time, when he repeated his question, the people cried, Some of us do, some of us do not. Nasruddin said, Then let those who do tell those who do not know, and he left the building. The following story of the unity of all knowledge from the great 13th century mystic of Balkh, now Afghanistan, Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, may perhaps get to the heart of the problem. Beyond Ghor there was a city. All its inhabitants were blind. A king with his entourage arrived nearby. He brought his army and camped in the desert. He had a mighty elephant, which he used in attack and to increase the people's awe. The populace became anxious to see the elephant, and some sightless ones from among this blind community ran like fools to find it. As they did not even know the form or shape of the elephant, they groped sightlessly, gathering information by touching some part of it. Each thought that he knew something because he could feel a part. When they returned to their fellow citizens, eager groups clustered around them. Each of these was anxious, misguidedly, to learn the truth from those who were themselves astray. They asked about the form, the shape of the elephant, and they listened to all that they were told. The man whose hand had reached an ear was asked about the elephant's nature. He said, It is a large, rough thing, wide and broad, like a rug. And the one who had felt the trunk said, I have the real facts about it. It is like a straight and hollow pipe, awful and destructive. The one who had felt its feet and legs said, It is mighty and firm, like a pillar. Each had felt one part out of many. Each had perceived it wrongly. No mind knew all. Knowledge is not the companion of the blind. All imagine something incorrect. The created is not informed about divinity. There is no way in this science by means of the ordinary intellect.